Hey friend, welcome to Grounded, the vestibular podcast. I'm Dr. Madison Oak, aka the Vertigo Doctor. I am the vestibular physical therapist who is here to help you with all things dizziness, imbalance, and vertigo. In this podcast, we explore the fascinating world of vestibular disorders. Come with me as we dive headfirst into a journey to discover the mysteries of the brain, the inner ear, and the balance mechanisms that keep us grounded. Whether you've been managing dizziness for one day or 25 years, we're going to get real about what it takes to manage dizziness, handle the anxiety cycle, and thrive, not just survive, with your vestibular disorder. First, I want to remind you that this is never medical advice. Remember, this podcast is for informational purposes only and may not be the best fit for you and your personal situation. It shall not be construed as medical advice. The information and education provided here is not intended or implied to supplement or replace professional medical treatment, advice, and/or diagnosis. Always check with your own physician, medical professionals, and healthcare team before trying or implementing any information found here. Meet me in your coziest chair while we navigate the highs and lows, the twists and turns of the vestibular universe. Welcome to Grounded. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Grounded. The audio might be a little bit funky today. And if that is the case, I apologize. I hope that it is not. I first wanted to read you the win of the week. This week's win of the week is Erin. Erin says, I have been driving a lot. I'm learning my threshold and was able to set some parameters for driving for myself on the 4th of July party 45 minutes away. I couldn't stay as long as I wanted, but I managed to go on my own, drove the freeways both ways, and wasn't completely out of whack the next day. Learning my capacity for new things is huge for me. I'm also in the middle of a very stressful move, and it's been a lot, but I'm managing. Forced independence. I could not have done this a few months ago. I am so glad I joined group when I did. This is an absolutely massive win for 1 bajillion reasons, but the main one is regaining your independence and also setting boundaries. So congrats to Erin. I'm so glad you did that. Learning all of this information through Vestibular Group Fit from joining just a few months ago is such a huge improvement, and I'm so proud of you. So congratulations to Erin. Mainly, I want you to think about today's topic about boundaries. Now, setting boundaries when you have a vestibular disorder is beyond important. I cannot stress this enough. And this is going to be a kind of a quick episode, but I want you to take some time today to reflect on your personal boundaries and whether or not you may have them. So the first thing that I want you to think about when it comes to boundaries is, do you have them? And do you need to make some? Do you maybe need to make new boundaries? What do they look like? And I want you to think of boundaries as like a personal fence that provides you mental and emotional space. So creating space for yourself during a healing process is so important. And many of my patients, if not all of them, have come to me and said something along the lines of, I used to be able to, and then they'll insert this list of like 1 bajillion things that they would do for other people, but not necessarily putting themselves first. And what often is said is you cannot give from an empty cup. So you need to fill your own cup first. And what that has a lot to do with is boundaries. I know a lot of people will say, but I have this, but I have that. We still need boundaries, even if you have children, or especially if you have children, a job, a partner, friends, family, all of these things, you still need personal boundaries. So these are things that help us communicate our needs, our expectations, and ensure that we do not overextend ourselves in order for others to take advantage of us, or we're not doing so much for other people that we don't also take care of ourselves. And I want you to ask yourself this question: when was the last time, not medically related, that you did something just for you? You sat down to read a book, to listen to a podcast, to get a manicure, to paint your own nails, to do a puzzle by yourself. When was the last time you did something just for you? And a lot of the times the answer to that question is a long time ago, or definitely not this week, or definitely not today. And I want you to make time every day to do at least one thing just for you. When we don't set clear boundaries, we might find ourselves saying yes to things we don't want to do, or overcommitting our time, or neglecting our own personal needs, our own self-care. And this can absolutely lead to things like burnout and strained relationships and strained relationship with yourself. So let's talk about how to set some effective boundaries. And I'm going to talk about 5 specific things to help you start with boundaries. Now, everyone's going to have different things, different needs, but I just want you to think about all these things overall and kind of put together. So the first thing I want you to do is identify your needs and your limits. Now, this might change day to day, week to week, and probably most definitely change from before maybe you had dizziness to now, whether that was 20 years ago, whether that was 5 days ago. It doesn't really matter, the same things apply. So take some time to reflect on what you need to feel balanced and fulfilled. I'll give you an example for myself. For myself, in order to feel balanced, I need to take time to breathe or meditate every day, which I haven't been doing recently, in all honesty, and I don't feel good. I need to eat enough vegetables. I need to eat enough protein. Those things make me feel really good. I need to drink enough water. Now, those things seem silly, but like I just had a really big move. I haven't been doing any of those things. And frankly, I do not feel good. I need slash want to go to bed by like 9:30. I get in bed. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. I get in bed around 8 or 8:30, start getting ready, put the dogs to sleep, which is like a hassle in itself because we have a new puppy. Then my husband and I get ready for bed, brush our teeth, wash our face, whatever. And then I go to sleep, I read a little bit, and then I'm in bed. Recently, I have been shopping for furniture because we currently have nothing but a mattress, not a couch, not a table, not a chair, literally nothing. Our house is in complete disarray because we just moved, right? We have a mattress on the floor. That is it. And so I've been up late shopping for furniture. We finally got a dresser, it's on the way. So these are things that I have been prioritizing over my personal need for sleep. And I do not feel good. I fully had a mental breakdown the other day. Like I was not okay. I was crying, all of the things. And I was like, okay, I need to start prioritizing my sleep again. I do not feel good. So you need to identify your limits, and those limits can change day to day, right? Like my limit for not eating well is different when I'm sleeping well. And so you need to balance these things separately, and understanding that your needs will help you determine where to set boundaries. Okay. I had to say no to a plan that I had made for last Sunday because I was not feeling good. And I really, honestly, I upset this friend when I canceled our plans. And that didn't make me feel good. I still feel bad about it, but I also needed to prioritize myself. So, really taking care of yourself is so important. Set yourself some boundaries in that. Step 2 is communicating clearly. So once you've identified like this boundary, for me, I'm just giving you simple ones like eating and sleeping, right? But there's so many boundaries you can set. Once you've identified those, it's important to communicate them to others. It's your job to set boundaries, and it's the job of other people to respect those boundaries. I want you to be clear, be direct, be assertive, but also respectful. So if this is a basic one, need time uninterrupted to focus on a project, I let my husband know, hey, I need someone to take care of the dogs today. Is there a time today where like you can give me 2 or 3 hours, like you take care of the dogs? We don't have kids at this time. And like I can aside some time and we can communicate about that, right? Being clear about what you need. Do not be passive, like, hey, why don't you take care of the dogs at 2? Like that's not a really helpful way of saying something. Like, hey, I need this. Can we communicate directly about that? Hey, I need to go to sleep at this time. So can we make sure that we prioritize our schedule of eating dinner, getting ready for bed, taking the dogs out, whatever, so that I can get this sleep again? Like, what are the things that you could ask for support in, but also say, hey, I need to start doing these things for my health, for my mental wellness, for my emotional well-being, whatever it is. Can you help support me in that if you need support? Or, hey, I'm going to do this thing, and it's their job to respect that boundary. You may not say something that affects someone else negatively, right? It can't be like, I need you to do this. No, it's, I need this. How can we make that happen? Okay. Step 3 is learning to say no. Saying no can be so difficult, and I am right there with you. Saying no and asking for help are 2 really difficult things, but are things that are often required in boundaries. Now, when you set a boundary, it needs to be no pressure on anyone else. Hey, I need this thing. I'm going to make this happen. And sometimes you do need to ask for help. Like, I need help taking care of the dogs, for instance, but you need to make it less pressureful on someone else. Hey, I have this plan. I need help. But saying no is so important because just like I was telling you, I made this plan with a friend. I don't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday at this point. I think it was Sunday. to go floating down the river. And we were supposed to sit in tubes and float down the river. And then Sunday morning, I felt like a trash can. I was like, I literally cannot go do this. And she was really upset, honestly. And I had to say no, though, for my own emotional well being. It felt awful. I still feel bad. But it also, the benefit, the cost benefit analysis of me feeling bad about this thing was so much more beneficial long term for me to be able to kind of like feel like my life was more together, frankly. Like I had to get back in bed. I had to cry. I had to read. I had to meditate. I had to do a lot of things to be like, okay, it took me a couple hours, but still by the afternoon, we were supposed to go floating. I was like, I don't want to leave the house. I don't want to do it. So I didn't. So I said no to these plans to help maintain my personal boundary. And remember that if saying no to something that doesn't align with your needs or values is a way of saying yes to yourself. So me saying no to this person was a way of me respecting my own boundaries and asking for my own emotional well-being. All right, step 4 is being consistent. So I preach this. If you watch my Instagram, if you follow me on TikTok, literally, if you are in Vestibular Group Fit anywhere, you know I am like a freak about consistency. And I'm actually, today is Monday, I'm releasing a reel on this about consistency. I recently ran 1 mile a day for 90 days. I only ran more than 1 mile like twice, and it was with friends, but I got faster. I got more effective at running. My cardiovascular endurance went up. All these things happened by just being consistent. I didn't push myself to work harder. I didn't force myself to be like, I'm going to run faster on some days. I didn't do intervals. I literally just ran 1 mile at whatever felt comfortable for 90 days. And I automatically got faster. I started at like an 11-minute mile after not having run in like a year to I could run a 7-minute 11 mile when I was feeling good. So that is a massive difference. That's almost 4 minutes of difference, I think. And knowing that and just being consistent when it comes to enforcing your boundaries and doing your different practices is going to help you get better at it no matter what. Sometimes you'll set a boundary. I'm not going to do this thing, but I'll do it on Saturdays, but I'll say yes sometimes, but I'll do this, whatever. And if you're not taking your own personal boundaries seriously, you can't expect other people to take your boundaries seriously. And so sticking to them as much as possible, even when it's difficult, even when it's hard, is going to help it get easier. And again, kind of saying yes to yourself. Step 5 is practicing self-care. So practicing self-care is super important because it's not like, oh, I did this thing, I'm gonna like go get myself a treat. No, it's taking time for the activities that help recharge you, seeking support from friends, family, a therapist, taking time for yourself, making sure that you personally can feel like your yourself is taken care of. Kind of going back to this example, it's just like the perfect example. Where I was practicing self-care, usually I'm like an introverted extrovert. The older I get, the more introverted I get, honestly, and the more like personal time I need. But on Sunday, when I said no to this friend, I felt a lot of guilt, which we'll talk about in a second, and pushback and conflict and all of the things. I felt all of that. But that was my self-care. I needed to meditate. I needed to take the day to myself. Like I needed to do absolutely nothing in order to feel better today on Monday. So it's important to recognize again that this is not a one-time task. You need to be consistent. As your needs and circumstances change, your boundaries might also need to be adjusted. You need to regularly check in with yourself, check in with your partner if you have one, and reassess your limits to make sure they continue to serve you well. And remembering that your limits might change on a day-to-day basis. So your boundary might be, hey, I have a disorder that fluctuates day to day. Sometimes I need help and sometimes I don't. And I need an open line of communication with you in order to help me be my best self with you, or whatever that looks like. So before we wrap up, I want to address some common challenges that people face. The first one is guilt. And when you start setting boundaries, it's normal to feel guilty. It's normal to feel bad. Going back to my Sunday example, right? I felt horrible about saying, hey, I cannot go do this. I need to set a boundary right now. I cannot go to this thing because I received the next thing, which is pushback. she was like, well, and she's not a bad person. She's one of my good friends. She's like, I was like, I'm too exhausted to do this. And I just don't feel like I can participate in this, basically. And she's like, it's just sitting in a tube. It's not active. And I'm like, I literally don't think I can do it. Like I cannot do it. And the pushback literally was like, I but it's not doing anything, it's just sitting. But my boundary for that day was I cannot leave my house. And I didn't leave my house. I literally was like, I need to sit inside. And like I still don't have furniture. So like I sat in my bed for a long time. I like bopped around the house a little bit. I went for a very gentle walk with myself. Like I was super careful with myself that day. So I felt guilty. I received pushback and I was afraid of conflict, right? Like this is a good friend of mine, but she's also probably a newer friend. And setting boundaries sometimes leads to conflict because it's my job to set boundaries and it's other people's job to respect the boundary. So I can have an open conversation with her later about respecting my boundaries in the future, and that's not a problem. That's something I feel comfortable doing. But remember, it's important to address issues directly rather than avoiding them. So previously with another friend, I've been like, "Hey, this thing," and they were like, "Hey, I don't love that," and we had a conversation about it. I was like, oh, I understand your boundary now. Now I can respect that boundary. And healthy boundaries can lead to healthier, more respectful relationships in the long run, but they can be a little bit uncomfortable in the short term. So remembering all of these things, remember that I love you. I'm here to support you in your boundaries. If you have questions about boundaries, please do not hesitate to reach out. So I hope you found this helpful. Please let me know again if you have questions. And remember to set yourself a boundary. This week, try to set yourself at least one boundary. Remember that this week is the summer challenge. So if you have not signed up, the link is below. If you are a member of Vestibular Group Fit, you received an email with a code to make it free to you. If you are not a member of Vestibular Group Fit, it is just $35, which is half of the cost of 1 month of Vestibular Group Fit. It is a 6-week challenge, so I cannot wait for you to join. It is purchased on my website below, and then you will be transferred to the Substack. You will be sent a bunch of emails, and it will be clear exactly how to use it. But of course, if you have questions, please let me know, and we can go from there. I love you, and I will see you next time.